Okay, so we're going to start with Parak Yud Gimel of Tanya. Parak Yud Beis, Yud Gimel, Yud Dalet, Hasvav is all speaking about the Beinoni. So just to review what we said last time, that we're all born with a nature that we are able, the mind is able to rule the heart. Mayach shalat al lev. And the Beinoni practices this all the time, that his mind rules his heart, and therefore in behavior, his thoughts, speech, and action, what he chooses to dwell on, and what he says, and what he does is all perfect on the outside. So in this chapter, we address one of the questions that we asked in the first chapter of Tanya. The first chapter of Tanya had a lot of questions, and one of the questions were, a baby before it's born is made to swear that it will be a tzaddik and not a rasha. And even if the entire world says to you that you're a tzaddik, oh, you're so wonderful, you're so great, you should view yourself, kirasha, welcome. You should view yourself as a rasha. So seemingly that's a contradiction. We tell the soul before it's born, you have to swear to be a tzaddik. And then we tell it, if once you're down here and everyone says you're a tzaddik, you're amazing, view yourself like a rasha. So which one is it? It's a contradiction. So this parak addresses this question, and it says, Everyone
say that you should be more humility. What's the word? Humble. You should humble yourself, not think of like a Russia, but.
So the key letter is ki rasha, like a rasha. You should view yourself like a rasha. What does this mean? The whole world is telling you you're a tzaddik. Why? Because they only see you on the outside. They only see your thoughts, speech, and action. Well, they don't see your thoughts, but they only see your speech and your action on the outside. They don't know your inner struggle. And your inner struggle is like a rasha. Because the Beinoni is in between a tzaddik and a rasha. On the outside, he has behavioral perfection like a tzaddik, but on the inside, he is kirasha. He's struggling like a rasha. He has the same struggles as a rasha. So even if the whole world is telling you you're a tzaddik, you should still view yourself as a rasha because you have the same struggles as a rasha. So that answers that question. So it's not a contradiction, because on the outside, there is no difference between a tzaddik and a Beinoni. You wouldn't be able to tell a difference on the outside. And also another thing it says in Parak Aleph Tanya, it says that a tzaddik, his Yetzer Tov is his judge, a rasha, the Yetzer Hara, is his judge, and a Beinoni, zeh v'zeh shaftan, both the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara are both judges. So here it explains what that means. A judge, in this case, is someone who gives their opinion. A judge is giving his opinion, but what the actual ruling is going to be goes by the majority. So the tzaddik, he only has a Yetzer Tov that's giving an opinion. So he's going to listen to the Yetzer Tov. A rasha, he only has a Yetzer Hara who's giving an opinion. So he's going to listen to the Yetzer Hara. And Beinoni is someone who has there are two opinions. There's the opinion of the Yetzer Tov, opinion of the Yetzer Hara. So what's going to happen? You need a third judge to make a majority to decide how you should actually act. So the Beinoni takes Hashem to be the third judge, and that's how he always wins. For instance, let's say a child goes to the playground and there's a bully. So what does he do? He brings his father. He brings his father to the playground. When his father is there, the bully is not going to touch him. So the Beinoni is someone who there are two opinions, there is a struggle, but he always wins the struggle. Why? Because Hashem helps him. He chooses to ask Hashem to come to his aid, and Hashem helps him, and therefore he's able to make the right decision. Okay, now this Beinoni, sometimes he gets reprieve from the struggle. He's always constantly struggling, but he gets reprieve when he is davening. When he is davening, we spoke about this last time a little bit. When he is davening, his Yetzer Hara goes to sleep. So you would think.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
I feel like when you're davening, you start to all the thoughts start coming to your head. Like at the time when it's like, when we talked about last
Yeah.
week, and I was like, I feel like when I'm davening, it's way stronger. It's the thoughts, the thought part. My thoughts are totally getting distracted. Hi.
Welcome.
So what do you mean when you say I feel like it empowers me to move forward with my day, but at the time of davening, I feel like my thoughts are very distracted.
Okay, so I guess
like today I was thinking.
that we could say is that within davening there are many, many different levels. There's many different levels of awareness of Hashem when we're davening, but a Beinoni who really gets into the davening, it's work. Davening is Avodah Shebelev. If you're davening and you're saying the words and you're thinking about, and there's many distracting thoughts in your head, you haven't reached a level of a. Yeah, there are higher levels of davening, but if a person could reach a level that he's really into the davening, then the Yetzer Hara goes to sleep. And for a Beinoni, it might not work for us every time, but a Beinoni is someone that his tool that he's using constantly is mind rules over heart. That means he has control. He has control of his thought, speech, and action. If we're davening, and while we're davening, we're thinking about bills or whatever it is, then we're not controlling our thoughts. We're not in control of our thoughts. So
I was saying to him today, and then I remembered why I was saying it. So then I'm like catching myself. Right. So even within the time that I'm davening, there could be moments that you catch yourself, and the Hasidim would say that every day you take one paragraph, that paragraph you're going to totally be focused on. So and every day it's another paragraph, and slowly, you make your way up. So when a Beinoni davens, a Beinoni is someone who is in control of his thoughts, and he's more and he's able to not think about distracting things. He's able to choose to be in charge of himself and to think about Hashem. Then at that time, his Yetzer Hara goes to sleep. So you would think that the more time you daven, the more sleepy your Yetzer Hara is, the easier the battle will become. Right?
Yeah, that's what it seems.
That's what it seemed like. But in this chapter, we don't want to scare anybody, but the truth is that the Yetzer Hara does not get weaker. While you're davening, I'll just say about addiction. Rabbi Shais Taub gives this example. He says, so people that are fighting addiction, so they come to a meeting and they're strengthening themselves. And one guy says, listen, while I'm in here, I'm safe. But my evil inclination, my addiction is outside doing push-ups. So the second that I leave this room, I'm back to my struggle. So the Yetzer Hara is not doing push-ups. The animal soul is not doing push-ups while you're davening. While you're davening, he's sleeping. But the Yetzer Hara, just by the fact that you're taking care of your physical needs, just by eating, by sleeping, by working, which are all things that we need to do in order to live on this earth. There's nothing evil or wrong with them. But just by doing the things that we need to do, the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, the Nefesh Habam, this animal soul, actually gets stronger, not weaker. So the battle is constant. The battle is not easy. And this is what the Beinoni is dealing with. It's not like the goal isn't that the struggle should become less. That's not the goal. The goal is
to serve Hashem, to constantly have in mind, Hashem, what do you want from me? How can I serve you best? It's some therapists, correct me if I'm wrong, some therapists say, like, if you want to fight something, then get to know it really well.
Keep your enemy close.
And then you'll be able to fight it. But the Tanya has a different approach. The approach is not to grapple with the darkness. It's not to fight, to know your garbage really well and to fight with it. The Tanya approach is not to focus on the negative, but rather just the struggle might be stronger, but just keep focus. How can I serve you, Hashem, today? Not to deal with you agree?
Not to do so much struggle. Well, and so you think there's no concept of like what I'm with somebody get that and Hashem should take away with
Well, we do say it in brachas in the morning. We ask Hashem that we shouldn't be tested and things like that. Yeah, we ask Hashem. We don't want to be tested, but
I really like this point because I think if you focus on the struggle, that's all you're focusing on, and it takes away your like energy, and you're just focusing on the struggle, and you don't want to deal with like what you have to deal with. It's like if you stop thinking about the struggle, you just want to do what's right, and you don't even see. You're focusing, right? I think you lose focus. If you keep thinking, well, it is like it makes you feel bad. Yeah. I'm saying it doesn't do you any good to just focus on the struggle and think about how hard whatever you're dealing with is.
Yeah, no, yeah, 100%. Okay. Okay, so just to give a couple more analogies, imagine you have a radio. A radio, it's old-fashioned. Imagine you have a radio and it's on full blast and you pull out the plug. Then 10 years later, you plug the radio back in. It's going to just go booming. It's not going to go, it's going to be as loud as it was when you plugged it in, right? Because you left the volume on. So that's what happens when before you're davening, the radio, the noise, the conflict, it's all loud and booming. You daven, you pull the plug out. You finish davening, the plug goes back in. You're back to the struggles, and the struggles do not get easier. Okay. Now the question is, in Torah, there's a concept of emes. Emes is truth. Truth has to be true from Aleph till Taf, from beginning to end. Like, if, for example, like I'm a little rusty with this, but I kind of remember from somewhere in my education, like if there's like a river that will dry up, then it's not considered, maybe for mikvah or whatever it is, it's not considered that it's going to stay this way, then it might not be considered kosher, because something that's going to dry up or won't stay in this form, or then it's not considered true. Something that's true is true not just in the beginning, not just in the end, but it has to be true from beginning to end. Hi. Thank you for coming. Okay, so the question is, when a Beinoni is davening, while he's davening, he's absorbed in his davening, he's concentrating, he's thinking about Hashem, doesn't have any distracting thoughts, then as soon as the davening is over, you plug the radio back in and we're back to the struggles. So is the davening true? Can you say that the davening is true, or is it just fleeting and it's just an illusion, and I'm just convincing myself that I'm connected, and really I'm just fooling myself?
So that was the question.
That's the question.
Because we're not really, can't concentrate on that. You're not fooling yourself. I think whatever took. But you still have to deal with what you have to deal with. And maybe you think you could deal with it in a calmer way because you do feel that you connected a little bit.
Amazing. So if when you work hard at something, it's yours. So someone asked a question in Rabbi Shei's Taub's class. Let's say a person goes to seminary for 10 months and they're in a great environment and they're learning every day and growing. And then 10 months later, okay, they go back home and they're back to, their old way of life. So was those 10 months real? So if my righteousness or my goodness or what I'm achieving is all about my environment, only if I'm in a good environment, surrounded by these kind of people, doing these kind of thing, then I'm good. So that is a little bit shaky. That's not what it means, a Beinoni, because you're dependent on your environment. If my environment is good, then I'm good. If my environment is not good, then I'm not good. Then you're not in control. What's in control? What it's up to I have no power. It's whatever's around me. That's how I'm going to live and function. That's not a Beinoni. On the other hand, if I daven, right, and I reach this great level, and then I'm done davening and I go back to to what I was doing before, put the radio back in, full blast, struggle. But when I davened, I meditated on the greatness of Hashem, and I am able at any given moment, if I just want to tap back into that zone, to go back into that zone. So as long as I'm in control, I could decide I want to go back into that zone right now, then my davening, relatively speaking, for the Beinoni, is 100% true and emes. Why? Because it's my work, it's my effort. It doesn't welcome and mazel tov. It's my work, it's my effort. I'm not dependent on anybody. At any time I want, I could go back into that zone because I have the formula to get back in, and that is through meditation. Chabad is about meditation. So if there's like this great inspiration that just came to you very quickly from the outside, then that's fleeting. You didn't do anything to earn it. You're in a good surrounding. You were at a speech, you're at a talk, you're at a class, and you were inspired. And then by tomorrow or whatever, the inspiration is gone. But if you did the work and you know how to get back in, and when you feel so, okay, I'm slipping now. I know what to do. I know what to get back on track. Open up the Siddur, start learning Torah. I know how to get back connected. Then that is considered a true davening, a true prayer, a true, being a true Beinoni, or at least a Beinoni moment. Okay. It's like a person who has money in the bank. You have money in the bank and you have an ATM card and you have a PIN to get the money. So even if I don't have opportunity, I can't get to the bank right now, I know that I have money in my account. I just have to, walk over to the bank, drive over to the bank, and then I'll pull out my money. The money is there. So as long as I can pull out the money, as long as I have the money, even if I don't have the money right now, at this moment, I'm at my work, at this moment, I'm doing other things, I'm eating, I'm sleeping, whatever it is, but I know how I know how I can get the money, and at any time I want, I'm in control. The question is, who's in control? That's the Beinoni is always in control. I'm not dependent on anyone for my Avodah Hashem. I'm saying, of course, rabbis and teachers are always amazing to have around. It's always good to be in a good environment, but my environment is not what defines my thought, speech, and action. The Beinoni has perfect thought, speech, and action in any environment.
That's if they have background, like you said. If the girl went to seminary for 10 months, then she has the capabilities. But if you don't build up reserve, then you can't always tap in.
You have to have the money in the bank account. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely. You have to put in the work. You have to put in the work. When you daven, you're working hard. But so you're putting money in the bank. You're putting money in the bank. And then even when you're not in the davening mode, at least you could always access it. You always have access to it. You always have access to that relationship with Hashem. That is how the Beinoni works. So just to So just to summarize, a Beinoni, his goal is not to become conflict-free, not to become struggle-free. That's not what he's, for a Beinoni, his goal is not to become a tzaddik. A Beinoni's goal is to serve Hashem. And in thought, speech, and action, he has behavioral perfection. And he does get reprieve sometimes, like that when he's davening, he himself internally may not even, he doesn't feel the struggle at all because his Yetzer Hara is sleeping. So he may even feel on the inside like a tzaddik. But it's always, Rasha. Ultimately, he does have the after davening, the Yetzer Hara will wake up and could even be stronger. But because he does have the same struggle as the Rasha, but ultimately we'll learn later on in Tanya that there's a lot of merit and a lot of greatness to the struggle. There's a lot of virtue to the struggle. The struggle is not for nothing. Okay, now I want to move on to speak about the parsha of the week, which is Parshas Pinchas. Now, last week we spoke about, was Parshas Chukas and Balak, and we connected it very much to the previous Avodah Rebbe who was released from jail, and we had a whole class about his Mesiras Nefesh, about his self-sacrifice, specifically for the education of Jewish children. This week's teaching continues on that theme. So although we discussed this at length last week, Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tammuz, the 12th and the 13th day of Tammuz, which was the actual day that the previous Rebbe was liberated from prison 96 years ago, fell out on a Tuesday and Wednesday of Parshas Pinchas. And the previous Rebbe says about himself that a lot of the major events of his life are connected very much to Parshas Pinchas. He said he was born in Parshas Pinchas. Some say his bris was in Parshas Pinchas, but his birthday is Yud Beis Tammuz. So, so his many life events and his Avodah, his service of Hashem, very much is connected to the hero of the Parsha, Pinchas. Okay, so let's see how. First of all, I had a whiteboard here. If you do the gematria, the numerical equivalence of every Hebrew letter has a numerical equivalence. Pinchas, Pei Yud Nun Ches Samach, has the same gematria as Yitzchak. And this is said about in the Zohar. So it's not just a gematria that somebody made up, it's actually recorded in Torah that Pinchas has the same gematria as Yitzchak, and the previous Rebbe's name was Yosef Yitzchak. So Yitzchak has the gematria of Pinchas, and how about the name Yosef? Pinchas, through his mother's side, Pinchas was a descendant of Shevet Yosef. He was from Shevet Yosef. He comes from Shevet. He comes from Yosef. It says in the pasuk, Elazar ben Aharon, Lokach loimi b'nos Putiel. Elazar, the son of Aaron, took for himself a wife from Putiel, from the daughters of Putiel. And Rashi says two things. What's Putiel? It speaks about two of her relatives. One is Yisroi, Shapitem Agalim, he fattened calves for Avodah Zarah before he recognized Hashem. And two, Shapit Peit B'Yitzroi, her descendant was Yosef, who overcame his evil inclination in Mitzrayim. So with Potiphar's wife. So how is the previous Avodah Rebbe connected to Pinchas? Yosef is his first name, and Pinchas comes from Yosef, and Yitzchak has the same gematria as Pinchas. Okay. Now, between the two names, Yosef and Yitzchak, the connection between Pinchas and the previous Rebbe is more seen in an open, revealed way in the name Yitzchak. And the name Yosef is in a little bit more of a hidden way. What did Pinchas do? The whole story is very maybe difficult to understand, dramatic. Okay, the whole story of Pinchas. He was he acted in a very zealous way. What happened? The halacha is that if someone is having relations with a non-Jewish woman, one having relations with a non-Jewish woman is struck down by a zealot. And it is not a command or a directive. He is given permission to do so. He's not commanded to do so. He doesn't have to do it. He's given permission to do so. And the same is with the Friedrich Rebbe, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, that his act of Mesiras Nefesh, what he did in Russia, was not something that he was obligated to do. It was something that he had permission to do, but it was not an obligation. A person has to give up his life for Hashem for three things. Other than that, a person has permission to give up his life, but has no obligation. So that's the first thing in common, is that they both went above and beyond what they were obligated to do.
Pinchas and who else?
Pinchas and the Friedrich Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson.
What did he do?
So in Russia, the main thing that that was forbidden was to teach Jewish children. He opened 600 schools throughout his time, 600 schools, and that was the worst crime that you could do. Like they didn't care so much about, if you want to learn Torah yourself, go ahead, learn Torah. But to teach the children, they wanted all the children to go to communist schools and to have the secret underground chadarim where there wasn't heat and there wasn't light and it was very, very dangerous. That was one of the main things that he did, and he sacrificed. Okay, so we're gonna speak more about this. Okay, so for both of them, it was a sacrifice not just of body, but it was a sacrifice of soul. How so? For Pinchas, when he did this act, the tribe of Shimon was so angry at him that they were going to kill him. By killing this man and woman, he was actually putting his own life in danger, because the people, his relatives, his shevet, wanted to kill him physically. And spiritually, he also was putting his life on the line, his spiritual life on the line, because the sages during his time, they disagreed with him, and they actually wanted to excommunicate him for what he did. And all this, the actual event, the actual story, is not in Parshas Pinchas. It's in Parshas Balak. So why are we even discussing it? Because in Parshas Pinchas is where God says he was right, and him and his children are going to be Kohanim. Until then, he was not a Kohen. When it came time to anoint the priests, it was Aharon and his sons, and then those sons, any future children they would become Kohanim automatically. But Pinchas, he was already born, so he was not a Kohen. But God himself said, it shall be for him and his descendants after him a covenant of eternal priesthood. The Hashem came to his rescue, because before that, he knew that the Chachamim, the sages, they felt that he was doing the wrong thing. Why was it the wrong thing? Because in such a case, a person has to be warned first. And here there was no warning. He saw two people doing the wrong thing, and this concept, you see in Torah, sometimes there are laws and things that don't actually ever happen. Like it's more in theory than in actuality. But in this particular halacha of having permission to kill somebody, to kill people when if a Jewish man is having relations with a non-Jewish woman, that a zealot could come and strike them. Believe it or not, so number one, there has to be a warning, and also you have to kill them when they're in the middle of the act. So it's basically impossible. By the time you finish warning them, the act is done. So here in this case, he did not warn them, which is why the Chachamim were upset at him, but he actually killed them in the act. So he was sacrificing his spiritual self, his soul, because he knew that the rabbis would be against what he was doing because they weren't properly warned. But if he would warn them, then they wouldn't be able to kill them. So he just basically took matters into his own hands, did what he did. He was ready to sacrifice his body. He was ready to sacrifice his soul. The same thing we see with the previous Avodah Rebbe. He was ready to give up his life. But not only that, he was ready to give up. Well, he wasn't just opening schools. He was sending people to be rabbis where that was needed. He was sending people to be mayhalim, to be shaykhtim, to open mikvahs. All that he was jeopardizing by opening 600 schools for children. Because if he was just opening mikvahs and sending shaykhtim and mayalim, nothing would have happened to him. He wouldn't have been arrested. But he jeopardized, besides jeopardizing his own life and the lives of the shluchim that he sent, he also jeopardized the whole everything that he was doing. He was jeopardizing everything because he knew that the Jewish continuity can only be through the children. So he was ready to sacrifice his body, he was ready to sacrifice his soul. He wasn't making any calculations. Saying, listen, I have to do what I have to do. He wasn't thinking about what will happen, what won't happen. He wasn't in the concentrating on the struggle. He was just forging ahead. What can I do today that another child should be able to learn alphabets? He wasn't thinking about the danger. That wasn't what his thoughts were busy with. Okay. So what ended up happening with Pinchas? What was Pinchas's reward? Because he went above and beyond Torah. He went beyond the limitations of Torah. Because Torah says you're not obligated to kill such an individual. You
also say thou shalt not kill.
Of course, you shall not kill, but it says in the halacha is that if you are witnessing a man and a woman having intimacy, a non-Jewish woman having intimacy with a man, then you have permission to kill them, but you're not obligated to do so. So he doesn't have a Torah obligation. So he went above the Torah obligation to endanger his body, to endanger his soul, in order to honor Hashem. And therefore his reward was that he and his descendants got kahuna, which is something that was above Torah, because Torah says only Aaron and his sons and their future children are going to be kohanim, and he got it anyway. Because it's midah k'neged midah. He went above Torah's limitations to honor Hashem, and therefore Hashem went above what he said in Torah to give him the opportunity to be a kohen and for his children, his descendants, to be kohanim forever. Okay. So only in Parshas Pinchas do we understand how great Pinchas' sacrifice was. From the reward, you're able to see that he went above the limitations of Torah, and Hashem said that he was right, and therefore he got this tremendous reward. And the same is with the Frierdiker Rebbe, with the previous Rebbe. At his time, the other great sages and leaders and rabbis disagreed with him. They disagreed with his approach. And he endangered all of his holy work, everything, because of his devotion to educating the young children. And then, for Pinchas, Hashem said that he was right, and Hashem gave him the reward of kahuna. When the previous Rebbe was released from jail, it wasn't just a personal redemption, but that proved That proved that his way was the right way, and everyone recognized that he had done the right thing. That's what his release proved, because he was originally he was sentenced to die. Then it was commuted that he would have to go to exile for 5 years, and he ended up just being released from jail. So everything that's down here on this earth is a reflection of above. The fact that he was released from jail proved to everyone that he did the right thing, that his approach was the correct approach. What's the difference between Pinchas and the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe? Pinchas, his action is not an instruction for anyone else, right? It's not something that we're going to go and emulate. But the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, his approach of having self-sacrifice for educating, for Jewish education, and for spreading Yiddishkeit, that is a lesson that we do take and that we are instructed to follow in his ways. Which is a big deal, and that's why you have Chabad emissaries all over the world that in a way are in spiritual danger. There's no Jewish schools, there's no other religious people around them, and yet they persevere. Because why are they doing this? They're endangering their own families so that there could be another child that's able to learn Aleph Beis and be connected to Hashem. Now, to top it all off, remember Pinchas and the previous Rebbe had the name Yitzchak, right? Pinchas is Gematria Yitzchak. We see the same thing by Yitzchak. When he was Avram's son, okay, when he was ready to be killed on the altar, was he only ready to sacrifice his body? He was also ready to sacrifice himself spiritually. By him, if he was killed on the altar, what would happen to the continuity of the Jewish people? And what would happen to everything that Avram worked his whole life to teach monotheism, that there's only one God? Everything would have been finished. And when he got onto that altar and told his father to tie him up, it wasn't just a sacrifice of body, it was a sacrifice of soul. Because there wouldn't be a continuation of the Jewish people. So we see Pinchas, we see the Frierdiker Rebbe, we see Yitzchak. It's the same Avodah. And this Avodah, this work, is something that we have to take a lesson of that we have the power, and we are instructed to be willing to give up our body, to give up our soul in order to help another Jew, in order to spread Yiddishkeit, in order to teach another child Aleph Beis. Because when these shluchim, when they go to Iceland or to Russia or to Japan or China, wherever they go, especially in the beginning, they don't have a minyan 3 times a day. They don't. They're sacrificing, and they're sacrificing a lot. And whether it be sacrifices for the women, whether it be finding a mikvah, or it's not easy. Kosher milk, or everyone has their struggles, or education, or whatever it is. But this is what it means. Mesiras nefesh. It's a real thing of today. To put ourselves aside. But and if, let's say, a person needs this Shabbos, the shul was packed by us, and there was an elderly man who was 90 years old who doesn't live here, but he is a father-in-law of one of the families, and he collapsed in shul. And there were four Hatzalah vehicles showed up. They were all in the middle of davening. But I'm saying, I know Baruch Hashem is fine, and it has happened to him before, whatever it is. But that's a Jewish people that you're in davening, you're middle, and in record timing. How many minutes was it that 4 vehicles showed up, and the guys were in their talis with they walked straight out of shul. They stopped their davening. They stopped their davening. I don't know if they're up to Shema or whatever, that you can't talk, you could talk, whatever. They forget it. A person's in need, they were here. And they came, because okay, we'll just send one car, we'll just it was a full blown, right? Liz was there.
Yes, I was there.
So this is what it means. If we're able to do it and a person is in danger physically, then we're also able to do it when a person's in danger spiritually. That we just drop what we're doing, and if a person needs help, whether they need a hospital visit, whether they need a mezuzah, whether they need whatever they need. That's what it means that we put ourselves aside, even spiritually. I take off time from my own learning, whatever it is, to go and help someone else. And you might think, oh, it's just Aleph days, whatever it is. But no, this is of utmost importance, that we're instructed to put ourselves aside to be able to help another Jew in a physical sense, in a spiritual sense, etc. Okay. Now, this is actually mind-blowing. Very, very connected to Tanya also. It's one drop Kabbalistic, but we're going to get right back down to earth, okay? Again, if I had a whiteboard, whatever it is. Yosef, Gematria of Yosef is 3 times 52. 52 represents God's name. A certain name is called Ban. If you take Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey, and you spell it out, Yud, you spell it out, Yud, Vav, Dalit, and you add up all the letters, it would be 52. It's one of Hashem's names. So Yosef is 3 times 52, and Yitzchak is 4 times 52. And we're going to talk about 3 and 4. The numbers 3 and 4. Now that we know that Yosef is 3 times 52, what does that represent? And Yitzchak is 4 times 52. What does that represent? So now you're going to get your memory. You're going to get your brain moving. We're going to start thinking of 3s and 4s. 3s and 4s, and we're going to figure out what is the message of 3, what is the message of 4, what is the message of Yosef, what is the message of Yitzchak, what lesson is there for us? Okay, so now, so interesting, okay? The menorah. What is the menorah? The menorah represents light, emanation. The steps for the kohen to light the menorah, 3 steps. When you're talking about light, you're talking about emanation. When you're talking about giving, that's 3. Okay, let me just preface this. 3 is Gimel, right? And 4 is Dalid. Gimel, if you look at the shape of the Gimel is open and giving to the next letter, Dalid, which is the poor person. Gimel is Gemilas Chasadim. Dalid is Dal, a poor person. And the Gimel is the giver. The Gimel is the giver giving to the Dal, giving to the Dalid is the receiver. So the light is the giver, right? And that's why the menorah, there were 3 steps to be able to light the menorah. Yaakov, on the other hand, he had a ladder in his dream, a ladder with 4 rungs. 4 represents 4 worlds, Atzilos, Bria, Yetzira, Asiya. 4 represents receiving. And what happened to Yaakov? He ended up, the angels came up the ladder, went down the ladder, and the angels that came down the ladder, they were the ones that ended up helping him to go into a physical world and stay strong in a physical world. So 4 is all about the receiver, about action, about this physical world. That's 4. And 3 is about the great lights, the emanations. When we spoke about 10 spheres, right? Chesed is right, is the right side. Gevura is left. Tiferes is bringing the 2 together. Then what do you have? Netzach is right. Hod is left. Yesod brings everything together. So Yesod is the culmination of right, left, and center. Those are all the lights. And then you have that 3. That represents 3. Right, left, center is 3. And then you have Malchus, which is the 10th, the lowest one. That is represented by the actual physical world. Malchus is 4. The fourth world, that's Asiya, that's the fourth world. So everything that when it comes to lights, when it comes to emanations, that's all 3, right, left, and center. And then where is it all coming to? Where is it received by? It's all received by Malchus, which is represented by the number 4. We have 3 avos, we have 4 imahos. The avos, the forefathers, in general, the male thing is giving and the female is receiving. We have 4 mothers, we have 3 fathers. We have, when it comes to the Jewish people, you're born, no work. Either a Kayin, a Levi, and Yisrael, that's 3, right? But then we have 4 species when we shake the lulav and esrog. The lulav represents someone who only learns Torah. Esrog represents someone who learns Torah and has good deeds. The Hadash represents someone who has only good deeds and no Torah learning. And the Aravais represents neither, someone who has none. No good. Do you know this? Okay. I'll go back. Okay. There are 4 species that we use on Sukkot, right? Each one, some have a good taste, some have a good smell, some have neither. Good taste represents Torah learning, and good smell represents mitzvahs. The lulav, right? It comes from a date tree. So it doesn't have a good smell, but it has a good taste. It doesn't actually taste, but it comes from the date tree. That represents someone who learns Torah, just learns Torah, is focused on learning Torah. Hadassim, the myrtle, has a good smell, but no good taste. That represents a person whose focus is on doing mitzvahs. Aravos has neither, not a good smell, not a good taste, represents a Jew who has neither, if we could say that such a Jew exists. And then the esrog has both, a good smell and a good taste. You can make jelly out of it, esrog jam. So that represents a Jew who has both. So when it comes, you're born a Kayin Levi Yisrael, that's 3. That's not up to you. But what kind of Jew you're going to be if you're going to focus on learning, if you're going to focus on doing mitzvahs, if you can both, none, whatever it is, that's already up to you. That's 4. 3 is what you're given, 4 is what you do with it. Okay? Now, this is also interesting. 3 matzahs and 4 cups of wine. Matzahs is biblical. To have 3 matzahs. 4 cups of wine is something that came from the rabbis. And the 4 represents 4 lashonos of geula. And there's 4 exiles. Everything, it's not for nothing that there's 4 cups of wine. That's our input, the 4. And this is also very interesting. When it comes to Torah, the Torah that we're given is 3 parts. Torah, Nevi'im, Ksuvim, right? And then we have the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch is 4 parts, right? Because the Shulchan Aruch is the practical, how you're going to live your life, what yes and what no. So the practical, the action is all represented by 4, and the emanations and the lights is all represented by 3. So Pinchas, his name is Gematria Yitzchak, which is 4 times 52. Pinchas is all about the action, all about number 4. He was a shliach of Moshe Rabbeinu, and he just did what he had to do without hesitation, without contemplation, without thinking too much. He just acted. But the previous Rebbe is different. He's a Rebbe. A Rebbe can't just have 4, he also needs 3. So he has Yosef and Yitzchak at the same time, while he's so involved in the Jewish education and sending out shluchim all over to do all this work. At the same time, he had Yosef. He was busy teaching the most deepest secrets of Torah. So he had both. This also is Nasa v'nishma. Nasa to do, that's 4. Nishma to listen, that's 3. And so Pinchas, when this was happening, Pinchas turns to Moshe and he said, you taught me, then in this case, this is what we have to do. And Moshe said to him, the one who says it, he should execute. He should do it. The one who reads the telegram, he should actually execute it. So yes, he acted. His name is 4, and it's all about action. But he still got power from Moshe Rabbeinu, from Moshe Rabbeinu's 3. And the same is with us as shluchim, as shluchim of the Rebbe, as people that are the messengers, the emissaries of the Rebbe. We have the three. We have the power of the three that from because a Rebbe can't just have four. It also has to have the three. It also has to have the Torah. So when we come to somebody and when we convince them to do another mitzvah, which is what we have to do, the person, the sheikh himself, and the person who is doing the mitzvah gets the concept of three as well from the four, because four comes after three. Four includes the three. So you get the three, you get the three as well.
A little complicated.
I agree. It's just so cool to see. So this is not Tanya. This is the teaching of the Pinchas. Yeah. Now, so here I'll leave these papers with you. This is the teaching. But the whole 3 and 4 thing, there's actually a rabbi on Project of the Sichos website, the Rabbi Beinoni, and he gives an hour-and-a-half class just about the 3 and the 4.
What's the name?
Rabbi Beinoni, amazing class. He gives you like 15 pointers of comparing. I just said the easy ones. That's just. But he proves it from Rogachover and whatever. It's a mind-blowing class. So if you go to projectwiththesichos.org, you'll see a whole bunch of classes. Rabbi Beinoni actually gives 2 classes, in-depth classes, and one of them is titled 3 and 4, and he completely speaks an hour-and-a-half about 3 and 4. Okay, so what's the lesson for me and you? The lesson is that when we come to influence another Jew, that we should focus primarily on the actual deeds. Deeds is the key. And how does this connect to Tanya? Because this is what we're saying. What's a Beinoni? He might struggle his whole life, but the main thing is perfection in thought, speech, and action. Tanya teaches us that the main thing is the action. What you're struggling inside, you're going to struggle your whole life. You were made to struggle. That's how we're created. That's how we're programmed. But the main thing is to work on thought, speech, and action. The deed. That's the main thing. And the same thing is with this teaching of the parsha. What do we learn from Parshas Pinchas? Pinchas, who's 4 times 52, who's number 4. It's all about the action. The action is what's most important. And although we said a class a couple of weeks ago, we were discussing about davening. If I said the words and I didn't have, and I wasn't concentrating, am I exempt or am I not exempt from my obligation to daven? So we're saying that davening, if you just said the words and you're just lip service and there's no, you're not thinking about Hashem at all, then you didn't actually daven, because you're davening means that you're thinking about Hashem, that you're connecting to Hashem. But it did say in this teaching that maybe Shema is different. Maybe saying Shema is a little bit different than davening in general. But specifically with Shema, there's a halacha that says, I'll just read it here. The halachic decision stated clearly in the Talmud and the codes is that thinking cannot substitute for actually saying the words. So if one has recited the Shema only in his mind and heart, even with the full force of his concentration, kavana, he has not fulfilled his obligation. He must recite it again verbally. If he has uttered them with his lips but was not mindful, he has still fulfilled his obligation. So for sure with Shema, if a person just said Shema and wasn't mindful, he still fulfilled his obligation. Because
It's interesting, because in my surgery before Shema, it says the first paragraph you have to concentrate, otherwise you have to say it again. It only says it for Shema.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
That's like the opposite.
No. Yeah. So obviously, the best of the best is to have concentration.
Says it there.
Yeah.
Maybe it's good because
You're
then
right.
it reminds you. Like this, you kind of just keep on saying it.
No, but it's Shema specifically. It says you have to concentrate on the words. Otherwise, it's whatever.
You're right. We have to look into it more. But the point is that davening, we said last time we said that davening. Step back. Usually when you do a mitzvah, there's the mitzvah and there's the kavanah. So if you didn't have kavanah, you at least got the mitzvah done. So Shema might be in that category, that it's a mitzvah. Kavanah is a big part of it. You didn't do kavanah, you're still obligated. But the mitzvah of tefillah, specifically tefillah, it's not separate from the kavanah. The mitzvah is to have kavanah. The mitzvah is to be mindful when it comes to davening. So usually when you open up a siddur, at least you're a little bit mindful, because you wouldn't just open the siddur if you didn't want to connect. So, but it's just interesting, the nuances. But the main thing is that one thing's for sure. If you just thought about Shema, then you have all the, you see, so davening is kavanah. But if you just have kavanah without the lip service, without the moving your lips, then you weren't yaitze. So basically the point is that action is the most important thing. Action is the key. And when we act in this way, see, a person could say, "Oh, there's nas and there's nishma, right? So nas says the action, nishma is to learn about it." The person saying, "I don't know, I'm not so great. I don't know the whole Torah yet. I'm not capable or qualified enough to go out and teach others. I still have my own inner work to do." So we say to him, there's no time to wait until we perfect ourselves. Mashiach is coming at any moment, and every second that we have has to be used to work with self-sacrifice to help another Jew do another mitzvah in a practical mitzvah in action. And when we act in this way, first of all, we will get the benefit of nishma. We will get the benefit of the Torah from our mishaleach, from our sender, number one. And number two, we will merit to have the revelation of Mashiach. And what's going to happen when Mashiach comes? Eliyahu Navi is going to come and tell us, he's going to be mevaser the geula. He's going to tell us that Mashiach is here. And who is Pinchas? Pinchas is Eliyahu Navi. So when we act in the way of Pinchas, we are going to merit Eliyahu Navi, and should be spilling our days that we should merit coming to Mashiach. To do action. Pinchas is 4 times 52, right? And that represents the concept of action is primary. So when we act in the way of Pinchas, which means to act, not to be zealous like that. To act, so to act with zealousness, yes. To act in the way of Mesiras Nefesh, you're ready to give up your body and soul to help another Jew learn alphabets, or whatever it is that they need. Yes, to act in a zealous way, to act in a way where you're not thinking about yourself, you're not thinking about your body, not thinking about your soul, but you're just thinking about glorifying Hashem's name and helping another Jew come closer to Hashem. So that we do have to. That's the lesson that we take from this week's parsha, and now we see how the Pinchas is very much connected to the previous Rebbe who had the name Yitzchak. But the lesson is, the action is primary, and that we should do whatever we can to have Mesiras Nefesh, to be zealous, to go beyond what makes sense, to get another Jew to do another mitzvah. Just this week, one of the people in our shul, they brought a guest, a relative who's not religious, and he has in his house a statue of Ben Gurion, and the neighbor was telling my husband that he was busy arguing with his relative about the statue that he has of Ben Gurion in his house, that he shouldn't have it, whatever. I said, forget about it. Don't argue with him about his statue. Get him to put on tefillin. Do an action. It's not about, you know what I'm saying? That's that, and to have Mesiras Nefesh, because this same individual, he had different complaints, whatever. And my husband's like, we have to have Mesiras Nefesh to help another Jew come close to Hashem. And he basically showed him how all of his complaints were invalid, because when you have that approach, that the main thing is to help another Jew do one more mitzvah, then all the arguments just disappear. It's not about you're learning Torah and how great you are and how could you take time to stop it up. It's all irrelevant. It's all irrelevant, because when you act like Pinchas is, it's not about me, it's not about my brownie points, it's not about my Gan Eden, it's not about my Olam Haba, it's about getting another Jew to do another mitzvah, and I'm ready to sacrifice everything, body and soul, to help another Jew. Okay.
Who was he helping? When he killed those people?
He was glorifying God's name, and he was actually helping because there was a plague broke out. And once he killed them, the plague stopped. So he was actually saving lives and glorifying God's name.
Okay, but we didn't really.
Yeah, talk about the whole story. Yeah. Okay. Thank you all so much for being here.